Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Excited to have the founder and creator of Nobelia.org. Yeah, we're talking about the Way-of-Impeccability and Moreness-Project life change programs. He's also an author and poet, does so much. Syl Sabastian, how are you today?
I am most well, really, really. I am most well. I'm just excited to be here. And I was sharing with some friends earlier, and they're excited for me to be here. And lots of support for this. So I'm very excited, very happy to be here.
Oh, great.
Thank
Well,
you.
tell us a little bit about Nobelia is. What is this all about, this world of awareness and understanding?
Exactly, exactly. Sorry, I'm excited. I don't mean to interrupt you there. You were going to say more.
No, I want to know what Nobelia is specifically.
All
Tell
right.
us. And by the
All
way,
right.
the
So,
website, Nobelia.org,
correct.
Nobelia.org. Tell us
Yes.
about the
Yes. Yes.
self-discovery
Thank you for
project.
spelling it, because sometimes when I say Nobelia, and people hear it with an I, but it's an E, Nobelia. So Nobelia, yes. It comes from noble, nobleness. So Nobelia is it's the home of it's a long story, but to get there really short, Nobelia is a representation of Moreness. And Nobelia is the home of a culture of Moreness. Now, what do I mean by Moreness? I mean a culture that revolves around learning and growing, around where you want to be able to be your Moreness. And I don't mean it in a typical success point of view. When we say this, people think, oh, this means being famous or wealthy. No, not at all. It means developing your inner sense of who you are so that you can be able to be who you really want to be. In other words, to develop your qualities, such as simple things like your inner integrity,
Yeah.
being able to be honest all the time. Yes, I mean, this is huge. Yes, it's a big deal. It's
Well,
a
I
massive.
think it's amazing, but I also need to find out the man behind all of this. So I need to get to
Thank
know
you.
you. Please, please.
Thank you.
Really, we
Right.
need to get more about you. I want to find out first and
In a
foremost,
moment, I'll say
you're
more. I want
living.
to add a little bit more about Nobelia.
Oh, sure.
The
Go ahead.
culture of Nobelia, why it's called Nobelia, is because it also revolves around nobleness.
Ooh.
Now, I say nobleness rather than noble or being noble
Mm-hmm.
because the word noble, sadly, is very corrupted because of our history, right? When we
Yeah.
think of nobility, we think of historic nobility, which is based on hereditary, and
Mm-hmm.
basically they were the very opposite of nobility, unfortunately, right? But on Nobelia, this concept of actually being noble, nobleness, right? This is what the culture there revolves around, right? So it's an entirely different culture beside, obviously, the self-improvement point of view, personal development point of view. You have to have that if you're going to aspire to be noble. You have to get all your P's and Q's sorted out. You can't be snarky or mean or sarcastic or jealous or any nonsense like that if you aspire to being noble, truly being noble. So this is what I mean by moreness, right? Going to that extra level, extra step, taking it all the way. And the key part of Nobelia, called Nobelia-Living, just for a way of understanding it, is to live in such a way where we are engaged in collaboration and cooperation, not competition. Why? Because the entire paradigm of Nobelia-Living is entirely different. Our paradigm that we exist in here today
Yeah.
is the superiority paradigm. This is what it's all about. Hierarchy, looking how high you can get on whatever pecking order list that you're possibly in. And, it's always about how we relate and compare to others. Am I better? Am I worse? It's always this hierarchy and dominance, and we get all of the problems that come from dominance. And, the issues such as, abuse, manipulation, narcissism, especially, they're all encouraged by the superiority paradigm,
Yep.
right? And that's what it's
Mm-hmm.
all about. The horrible thing. So Nobelia-Living is an alternative paradigm to the superiority paradigm. And not as the only one. I'm not saying it's either or. No, it's simply saying superiority paradigm, don't want it, something else, right? We can, once we realize that there is an alternative, that means there can be other. Yeah? Don't have to have this particular one.
Yeah.
I particularly like it a lot, but That's me. I'm biased. This is what Nobelia is all about, right? So Nobelia represents, it's a world. I mean, it's part of a long, big book series, but in a metaphorical sense and in our day to day, it's a world, right? And that's what it's representing. In a figurative sense, in a metaphoric sense, Nobelia is a world of an alternative paradigm, a world we can live in right here. Now, in this world, we can live and apply Nobelia-Living, which I'm going to share with you, because it seems to me that if I'm hearing you correctly, and I say hearing, it's capital H hearing, Nobelia hearing, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. I'm hearing you, Jill, if I'm hearing you, this interests you personally, not just from an interview point of view, yes?
For sure.
Right. It's important, because for me, I said to Jason, the producer, I said, when I do interviews, I somewhat interview the interviewer a little bit as well.
That's fine. Whatever you want to know.
Right.
How did you get here? I mean, what you're doing is fascinating. Hold on. I just have to point this out because it's part of my job to make sure people get to know you. And I know we're talking about breaking free from the should,
Thank
the
you.
what,
Thank
the limitations, and how to
you. Yeah.
start living deliberately like us and
There
this
you go.
paradigm
There you
change.
go.
We're going to
There you
get
go.
to this.
There
But
you go. Now, you
at
just
the,
said something
I,
super huge, and
I
thank you.
did.
We'll get back to it later, but thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
That's a huge deal. Huge deal. Yeah. That's how I got to be here. So it answers your question also. You actually answered your own question, which I love. Right? I got to be here because of deliberate living. That's how I got to be here.
At the
Wow.
age of 10, this all started, though. Where did you grow up, by
Exactly.
the way?
Exactly. All right. So I'll tell you that little story there. So when I was in that age, I used to have strips of rubber cut from inner tubes for car tires. Now, all right,
Mhm.
today cars don't have inner tubes, but back in the day they were, and it's rubber, right? So I cut them in strips, I don't know, about a foot and a half long, and I'd wrap it around my finger and I'd shoot stuff with this strip of rubber, right? It was wonderful. I just shoot everything. I got to be really, really accurate. I mean, I could shoot a fly anywhere, a mosquito, whatever, shoot the ash off your cigarette, whatever. So there was a bulb hanging in our passageway, and there was this fly sitting on the bulb, right? A light bulb. Didn't have a lampshade on, which is rather unusual, actually. So I shot at the fly, and I missed, and I was deadly. I never missed ever, and I missed just ever so slightly. I got the fly, of course, but I also
Yeah.
hit the light bulb, and the light bulb literally exploded, right? So I'm like a little bit disconcerted, and my mother comes out, and she sees me a bit upset, and she thinks I'm upset because I shattered the light bulb, but I was upset because I'd missed. So she misunderstood. So I kind of explained to her, and she says,
Wow.
"Well," and she says, "Well, we can't all be perfect, or we can't." No, she didn't say all. She said, "We can't be perfect," and it stopped me. And at 10 years old, I'm like, but why not? Why can't we be perfect? Yes. And so I went to my room and I thought about this. That was kind of my habit already. I really thought it through. So I'm like, well, what does perfect mean?
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, I had this a propensity or this inclination or whatever you want to call it to thinking things through to the end. That was
Amazing.
always important to me. Now, I personally feel it's a kind of a carryover. I don't know how it comes about. Truly, don't ask me. I can't explain why. But I thought it through to the end. So, in this
Yeah.
thinking it through to the end, I said, well, first of all, I have to understand what perfection means. What does it actually mean? So, I did a study. Yes, I know. Okay, it's a little weird. I like did a research study, like a psychology research study. I went out and I asked people. I queried them. What does what does perfection mean to you? Now, this sounds like a simple study, but it's a very conservative society that I was in, and a lot of the people said, "Well, perfection, that's meaningless. It's nonsense. You can't have it." And some of them would say, I got this very often actually. They said, "Oh, perfection would be very
Yeah.
boring." And in my innocence at the time and my lack of sophistication, and I hadn't yet learned Nobelia diplomacy, I said, "Did you realize what you just said?" And I remember one older boy When a moment he said, "Oh yeah, but perfection, that's just boring." I said, "Really? Just think about that. What did you just say?" And he realized what he said was oxymoronic. It was self-contradictory. It didn't make any sense. If it was boring, it wouldn't be perfect. And the
Yeah.
moment he clicked that he just, basically, said something stupid, uh, then the next moment I saw his face change, and that's the moment I ran away. Because I was about to get a smack. So, it was quite fascinating to me how this understanding of perfection was oxymoronic. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. So I thought it through to the end, and I came up with my first act of philosophizing, which was my definition of perfection, which
Uh,
is perfection is a state of being from
mm,
which, if you had the power to change anything at all, you would not. Yeah. So this is it.
beautiful.
This is perfection.
This
Yes.
is perfection. You are, oh my goodness, you are on fire. Well,
Thank
we
you.
also just want to remind people how we can contact you. Tell us again the website, nobelia.org. I'll spell that for them,
Let's connect.
Nobelia.org. But I know you also have a great Facebook page. Could you share a
Yes.
little bit about that
Yes.
too?
Yes. All right. So you can find on Nobelia right there with the pages. You
Mhm.
can click on connect. It's just, or you can go /connect, and you'll find all this info that I'm going to share now. And
Great.
on to connect with me, yes, you can just look up Syl Sabastian, and it's Sebastian with 3 A's. It's
Okay.
actually quite significant. Yes.
Oh,
It-
tell us. Yes,
yeah,
I've never met a Sebastian like you with three A's.
precisely. But this is the magic of my life, right? When I at that age, Sebastian is my middle name, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't really care much for my first and last, and Syl is a nickname, just so everybody knows. Right? I'm not hiding anything ever, just the way of how things come out via attunement. But Sebastian back then was spelled Sean, which is also somewhat unusual. But I never liked it. And when I was in my late teens, I changed it to Sebastian with an A and the
Okay.
A at the end, the 3 A's. No idea at the time other than, well, it's kind of a long story to it, but it was something I did. And I put it on my driver's license, and it became, now it's actually retroactively. I got a birth certificate recently. I got a copy, and it's got Sebastian spelled this way, my
Oh,
way,
wow.
not the way my parents spelled it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the significance is that what's behind me is the A plus philosophy, way of impeccability. And we'll get into it in later episodes. I'll go into detail, but that's the background behind me. And the three core A's of this are appropriateness, attunement, and awareness. Right. So my name has that in it, just from the way the magic of the world, how things work out. This is my life. This is my life, right? And that, so to finish my story about perfection, once I'd figured out that perfection is something we define. It's personally defined as perfection, and therefore it's attainable. If I'm in a situation where I don't want to change anything, well, that's perfect for me, right? And and I play golf, I make at least 18 perfect strokes. Any golfer is going to say, "No, come on, seriously, really." Every time you make a putt and you put it in the hole, it's perfect.
Yeah.
This is what you're trying to do, right? The objective, you achieved it. If it's in the hole, it's perfect. But so perfection is a variable, and I like that. And it's something that requires some discernment to comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
Discernment is a very big deal. And of course, it's practical. This is the point for me, that I wanted that practicality. So in that defining of what perfection is, I at that time said, this is what I want to do. I want to get to a state of being that
Yeah.
I feel is perfect for me. All right. Now, if you're thinking things through to the end, that's why it's always, if I write that to the end is all caps, right? Got to be really emphasized because it makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Then I said, well, what would I need to get to my idea of what things would be perfect for me? I would need to have awareness. This is what I said, right? I need to know what it means because I wasn't aware of really
Yeah.
what perfection was. So then I started my path of acquiring awareness. Yes. And this is a practical issue because the first thing when I started to think about awareness, I said, well, what is awareness itself? And then just to cut a long story short, the consequence of that thought was
Yeah.
horror, was absolute horror, when I
Wow.
became acutely aware of how unaware I
Mm-hmm.
was. Right now, this was really quite a big deal to realize how unaware we are. It's very scary, especially if you in a it was a very conservative society, and of course, superiority paradigm very prominent. So bullying was a very big issue.
Yeah.
Now, most kids are aware of bullying, but if you become aware of awareness and you're paying attention to your entire surroundings, you become acutely aware of things like that. And you become acutely aware of how vulnerable you are and how unprepared you are. Right? So this was like not only that, but we got canings at school at that time, right? So if you forgot something, like the classic thing was our we call them PT shorts, physical training, I think gym shorts, right? If you didn't take your gym shorts, you get a caning for that if you forgot your gym shorts at home. You know how often this happened? All the time, right?
Tell us,
All the time.
yeah.
I was like, I never got a caning for it, because when I did forget sometimes, but then I'd always remember when I got to school, and I'd find somebody else and I'd borrow theirs, from a different class who had it at a different time, and got me out of trouble, right? So this was, but I was horrified that I
Yeah.
could forget something like that. And it wasn't a memory issue, it was an awareness issue. And I was aware of this, right? So this was like, I mean, there are many other instances, and I managed to stay out of trouble because of this. I never got canings, well, only twice, but still, because of staying out of trouble, because of awareness. But the horror of it, to realize just how fragile your existence was because of lack of awareness. And that started me on the whole path. So when you take this all the way through to the end, what does it mean to live in awareness and to be deliberately aware? Like you said, deliberate living. Right? So all of the resultant behind me is, from that moment on, this was my entire life. Every single
Wow.
second was geared towards this. I want to add one
Wow.
more point to this.
Wow.
Yes. I realize, when I share this, I'm like, it sounds a little bit kind of out there, but we live in private realities that we don't always share with others. And what goes on inside of us is a very big deal. Now, I have 2 points that are very important here. When I was 6 years old, I had a very particular incident. I call it the bathroom incident. Now, when I say the bathroom incident, it sounds like, you messed in your pants or something. No, I went into well, we didn't call them bathrooms then, we called them toilets in where we were. This bathrooms is the American word. But anyway, so I went into the bathroom at school, right? And an older boy, a much older boy. That school actually was interesting in that it was all the grades, right? So I was in first grade, and this boy in like 10th, 11th, maybe 12th grade, he was bullying another first grader. And like, it was really not physically hurting him. We were just basically giving him a hard time. And the boy was kind of in tears a little bit. And then another older boy came in, right? In 12th grade. And he said to the bullying boy, like, seriously, what are you doing, bullying a first grader? Like, how lame are you? Yeah. And anyway, so the bully leaves, right? Kind of put, and he didn't, he just said it to him like that. He was very sophisticated, this boy. It was really unusual. That was like in a super conservative society. The town before I got to the other one. Anyway, so then he says to the two of us, like, you guys should know better. What are you doing here on your own? Yeah. It's not, he didn't use the word appropriate, but he said, come on, think about it. Don't be out here on your own. And and then I realized that you were saying, in my mind, I said, be appropriate. And also, he said, he made a point about behaving, behaving in a way that is right for the school, yeah, to take school into account. And from that, my takeaway from that, when I thought that through, I said, well, I basically need to have a public self and a private self. Yeah. And from that day on, I had public self and I had a private self. Because the things that you could do at school, this was like really that particular, because I moved from there,
Yeah.
that particular society was one step away from being Amish. They just didn't wear the uniforms
Wow.
and they used technology, but that was it, right? so super conservative society. So you had to really, really be careful about what you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the public self and the private self. And I want to say that private self was never secret. Nobody just ever
Interesting.
asked. If you'd asked, I would have told you. So I had this inner life, which I would have been happy to share, but I never had anybody to share with it. But also, in a way, it helped me because in my ignorance and not sharing this, I had no limitations on what I could do. Yeah.
Wow.
In other
I
words,
love it. And that's what you're helping people do too. No
exactly,
limitations, guiding them down this journey. And we unfortunately
exactly.
only have 3 minutes left in the show. It goes so quick. I just want to make sure we're
Really?
covering everything, Syl. Yes, yes.
Wow. Wow.
What
Wow.
what else do you think is important to share? Hopefully we're going to talk again, so we'll have more time to break
Oh, we
down
are. We got 10
everything.
more shows to do. So, well,
Oh
9 more
my
now.
goodness, this is
Yeah.
great. Okay, good, good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So
So
let's sum
we're
up
doing
then for
the full
today.
10. Yeah. Say again. Sorry, say again, Joe.
No, no. So how do you want to sum up for today, if you
Oh.
don't mind?
I just want to ask you, how do you feel about Nobelia-Living? How important is Moreness to you and deliberate living to you in your personal life? I'm always curious to ask.
So much. I am a mom, a single mom of a 7 and 9-year-old, right? And I
Wonderful.
believe in honesty. I believe in truth. I'm trying to teach my children to be more aware, more self-sufficient,
Yeah.
start working early, be kind, and always do to others as you would have done to you. A simple basics. We go to church every
Yes.
Sunday. Their religion
Yes.
doesn't mean they're trust me, they're 7 and 9. They talk back, they
Brilliant.
do the wrong
Brilliant.
thing. We all make mistakes, but I'm trying to teach them the
Brilliant.
value of everything. And I want them to live this amazing, best life ever, right? Because as
Yes.
we get
Yes.
wiser and mature, I only wish I knew then what I knew now, right? We all say that. So
Yes. So I'm
it's
going to share. Oh, God. Sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. So watching the time there, I just want to say next week, I'm going to share Way of Impeccability
great.
from the perspective of how it applies to children.
Beautiful. And hold on, your book. We have to tell everyone about your book, Making Sense of Toxic, Abusive People, right?
Yes.
We can get this on
Yes. Yes.
Amazon. There's
It
so
is on
much more,
Amazon.
Syl. I can't wait to
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
to you.
I'm releasing new books about to come this week, actually. One is this week and one
Yay.
probably next week called Ask Biella, and it's all about what we're talking about.
Oh,
That book is about the superiority paradigm. So just,
beautiful.
yeah, it's
Well,
about
thank you so much. Syl
pleasure,
Sabastian, go
pleasure.
to
Thank you, Phil. Pleasure.
nobelia.org, Nobelia.org. And he's really helping so many as an author, a
Yes.
poet, life changer program through this. You need to talk to him. I'm excited to know there's more books. Can't wait to talk next time, Syl. Thank you so much.
There's always more. When it comes to me, there's always more. Let me just say it now already.
I love
Bye-bye.
your energy. Thank you for sharing this
Thank
with
you.
us and uplifting all of
Yes.
us today. You have a fantastic day. Thanks so much.
Brilliant.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.